Hello friends, welcome to the Tamriel Tavern. I'll be your barkeep for the evening, so grab a chair, take a seat, and let's talk some Elder Scrolls Online. Today I wanted to talk with you guys about dungeons in the game. A couple weeks ago, ZeniMax posted a dungeon article and a follow-up Q&A was posted just the other day, so I wanted to touch on some of the more important bits of information that I got from both of these postings. First of all, let's talk about the dungeon article which was posted a couple weeks ago. First bit of information is that dungeons are designed specifically for 4 players, so it will be you and 3 other friends making your way through these dungeons in the battle for epic loot. They will be instanced as well, which means you won't have to worry about anyone else encroaching on your dungeon runs. Standard class roles do apply, so they're sticking to the typical DPS, tank, and healer trifecta of MMO dungeon runs, although a flexible skill system allows for additional options in a pinch. A specific example that they gave was that, say your healer gets taken out of the fight, if one of your characters, like a two-handed sword-wielding DPS character for example, has a staff as their off weapon, they can make a quick switch there and with a couple of healing abilities keep the group up alive long enough for your healer to revive and come back into the fight. The article also covered some of the basic roles of a DPS, tank, and healer. This was just basic MMO stuff, like DPS characters try not to over aggro, tank characters try to keep all of the enemies off of the rest of your group, and healers just try to keep everybody alive. The article also went in to explain some enemy behavior, which was fairly interesting. Enemies within an area will be leashed together, meaning that if you attack one of them, the other enemies in that area will be alerted, although that doesn't mean that everyone will attack you instantly. They're going to be attacking sort of in a pack mentality, and they went on to explain that that means they'll be spreading out and picking individual targets. An example given there was that a ranged enemy may pick a ranged player as their target until aggro is taken from someone else. Specifically, of course, the tank would be the ideal person to take the aggro off of the ranged characters, take the aggro off of the healers, and keep it all on himself. So that's a quick summary of the article. The follow-up Q&A is where we got some rather interesting points of information. First of all, something that actually seemed to surprise a lot of people, surprisingly enough, is that dungeons are made for groups. Pretty standard bit of information for MMO players, but again for Elder Scrolls players so used to doing dungeons by themselves, they're going to be thinking, well, what the heck, what if I don't want to play in a group? Well, their answer to that was that you can out-level the content, basically. They said if you find a dungeon too difficult to do by yourself, you can either play it as a group, which is basically how it's intended to be played, it seems, or you can out-level the content and come back later when it's a lot easier for you. I just wonder, though, who's actually going to do that, because I'm assuming that if the dungeons are being built with a group mentality in mind, then if you're out-leveling the content and you go back to do it just because it's easier at that point, are you going to be able to get any of that gear? Now there's this whole solo system within this game, the whole solo story that you're leveling up with, but when it comes to the dungeons themselves, it seems like specifically it's being built with group focus in mind, which again, in terms of MMOs, that's sort of standard. No lockout timers in these dungeons in ESO, and that means you're going to be able to continuously rerun dungeons if you're looking to grind gear. That will be an option. Group dungeons will also have specific icons on the world map, and the reason this was brought up was because someone asked, well, what if I run into a dungeon that's actually meant for groups and it's too hard and I die? They said that it will be clearly marked which dungeons are made for groups and which ones could be easily done solo, such as caves and things like that. Also, way shrines will be scattered throughout the dungeons, and they will act as the respawning points, so that if you die, you'll go to the nearest way shrine within the dungeon, which will allow you to run back to your group a little bit quicker than if you were to respawn all the way back at the beginning of the instance. And then the last bullet point that I wanted to touch on is that dungeon quest may actually change the location, behavior, or types of monsters you encounter within the dungeon. Now that's potentially exciting. They didn't extrapolate on that much more than saying that there may be quests that change these things, but the notion that a quest could change the enemy layout within a dungeon, I like that idea, because typically when I have played MMOs, enemy layout has been rather static. Every time you go into the dungeon, you know exactly what enemies you will be fighting where. This potential mix-up of that could make things, well, more exciting when it comes to dungeon runs in ESO. And that's pretty much all the news that I have for you guys today. Thanks for showing up at the Tamriel Tavern. Be sure to stop in next time you're in town, see if there's any more news on ESO. Now, get out of here. Seriously, get out of my bar. Scoot, come on, you haven't even paid for your drinks. Get out of here.